Hello and welcome to the channel Anthropohistory and Colonialism. I am Victor Collins, anthropologist, and today we open the course about Imperial culture of the demiurge, Jehovah, alchemy and magic, Tehuti and Hermes, a contrast and a dialogue. So this is the opening live. Uh, I'm not sure yet how many lives there will be, between probably 3 or 6, okay? And this course will be completed as a full circle with a conclusion. So I invite you all to join, to comment, to participate, and inscribe in the channel. Okay, I will be very happy to interact with you and hear your questions. So we're gonna enter this live through the term religare, in Latin, religio, which is the basis word for religion. Okay, uh, so a common problem while approaching the term religare through common sense is to imagine a human connection with the divine through an abstraction. In the Latin term, as in the Latin term fiat lux, which means shall there be light, okay, or may light become. However, the occult implication to these terms is that there is a mediating or mediator culture that makes the link between human and deity through regulated conditions by authorities in a midst to a program, including the interdictions and the regulated conditions within this program. That is an empire, as words like rules or regulation come from the Latin regis, that is translated as the crown. Okay, so what I'm saying here is that the common sense does not open to the to this whole imperial system that is implied in the word religion, religare, and it's take for granted, right? And this system is what we are gonna break down and analyze in this lecture, and what we've been doing in the previous slides also. Okay. There is the famous Masonic saying, "Per me regis regnant," from the Latin, that translate as, "Through the power of Jehovah, all kings shall reign." Okay, so the term, as I said, the term regis and reign comes from the crown. Therefore, what the occult orders are saying is that through the secret societies, there are pivotal players in the colonialist process, known as the Holy See, the worldwide expansion of this Latin colonialism that has been run. All the decision makings and all the rules have been done by secret societies, including frauding history, because official history and common sense is nothing but made up lies. It's entirely fraud. Okay, and yeah, and a famous example is the very word America, right? Because Americo Vespucci, this Italian sailor, and the occult order that he served, right, sold to the public that the continent's name came from his personal discovery and name as a way of honoring the secret society, which is from day one, let's say, of Latin colonialism, fake news, because they knew that the term America has actually two meanings that are occult, right? One is Amaraca, which is a native word, probably from the Inca culture. I'm not really sure about this, but Amélie Pihot works on this theme, which means land of the plumaged serpent, a reference to Quetzalcoatl, right? So it's a native term, and also Merica. Merica is a star in one of the Ursa constellations, probably the Ursa Major. Okay, so these these um, these colonial authorities knew this, and this is just an example in how the game is played from day one. Okay, so misinformation and fake news is the bread and butter of Latin colonialism. Okay, um, therefore, through the secret orders that led the colonialist process, like the Jesuits, the Knights of Malta, the Templars, and the Scot Rite, um, is the link between the crown and this power of Jehovah that they mention, right? So we are dealing, of course, with the central cult of the demiurge all along. That goes by many terms, right? There's a variety of terms for the cult of the demiurge, like Yaldabaoth or Zeus, Jupiter Capitolino, right? Even Dios in Latin, and okay. Uh, Legare from religare in Latin implies, no, pardon me, ligare from religio implies legare, okay, in Latin. That is a term translated as law. So, ligare and the term lex in Latin are actually directly linked. This indicates that the ecclesiastical body is related to an imperial apparatus and established as a state or juridical complex. And beside this complex comes the collective and the people. So a question we may ask is what is this what kind of relation is this? How does it happen? Okay, so repeating, um, the relation is formed between the ecclesiastical body, the imperial apparatus, and the state as the juridical complex, right? And the authorities beside the people and the collective. And this is a point observed between the relation of the terms ligio from religion and legare or lex, the law. So to answer this question, what relation is this and how does it happen? We need to observe human status in this system known as the Holy See and the procedure between the system and the collective. So for the terms navidad, in Latin translated as natal, where one is born, right? And navis, which is ship, we have there a reference to the sea, mare or mari, okay? In this sea is where the human condition is considered to be in perdition. Lost souls at sea that need salvation in a ontological status of precarity and corruption by nature, which is the term sin. Right? Within this mentality is what sin means. Okay, a precarious and corrupted status by nature that needs repair and salvation. So ontology is the study of being. Therefore, within the Christian theology, the Holy See, salvation system, the nature of being within human beings, or the ontology, is one of precarity and corruption by nature. Okay, so this is how the system works in its start, and this kind of thinking was developed in the transition between the the turnover from Imperial Egypt, when the Library of Alexandria was being robbed by imperial authorities, especially Roman, because we know that there's endless papyri that was stolen from Alexander and taken to Rome until this day, and no one is allowed to study them. Okay, so between this transition, Imperial Egypt occupied by Imperial Rome, to Roman Christianity, we have there a lot of work done by some fathers of Christianity, like Saint Cyril of Alexandria, that was responsible for Hypatia's murder. Saint Jerome played his part on this kind of work. Saint Augustine. There is also Loyola, a key figure on the whole Roman Christianity activity over the world, right? In the imperial sense. So what I'm saying is that this ontology of sin and precarity and corruption was fabricated within this context. So this is how the soul salvation system is invented, um, and it parallels all the social complex. So we analyzed in previous lectures the the system from baby birth in hospitals, paralleling the whole mercantile, economic, and military activity, because it's one and the same system. Okay, so this parallels goes from the salvation of souls, the ownership of bodies. Okay, Jordan Maxwell says that the human body is worth a few $1 million in the stock exchange, and it's a kind of guarantee resource within the system, right? To pay debts of the system and to back the system as a resource, right? The system's property, the human body. Okay? And it parallels economic life, cultural life, political, and military. all of this defined as maritime admiralty law, which, as I just said, one of the great works that breaks all of this down and explains in a excellent and incredible way is Jordan Maxwell. Okay, so in this system, living beings are owned as property and submitted to a corporative life involving taxation and profit. In other words, the whole life on the earth becomes a business, predatorial, of course, and all one has to do is take a look in the ecological catastrophe that escalated since the times of the Holy See takeover or invasion of these lands, which are not new. They were not new. Okay, this idea of a new world is totally false. There's a lot of archaeology and alternative history proving that all of these lands have been visited before by previous cultures, but we are analyzing how the Holy See works, which is based on misinformation and deceit. Okay, so paralleling the birth of babies in a hospital, which is an institution um, regulated by sovereign occult orders like the Knights of Malta. It is also a militarized institution. Within this soul salvation system that is also corporative, where the medics collect the afterbirth material to archive the DNA in a genetic to store the DNA in a genetic archive based on all this human DNA, and include the material within edits like the Unam Sanctam that have a theological formation and implications that basically will define that souls are lost at sea and require salvation. Okay. In practical terms, this implies that the the souls become property under the authority of the crown. That is the term regis in Latin, and submitted to the law, legare or lex, as taxpayers to the authority of Saint Peter, which is simply a play on the word Jupiter. Okay. Yeah. So the within the same system, there is the registering of names through the birth certificate. Okay, and this has been explained specifically in a previous lecture in details how the procedure works. Okay, so basically it is a system that is already set up before everyone is born. It is operating, and only if one truly gets informed about this and how it works, do the homework and be able to deconstruct the procedure, one can step free from it. So this requires, of course, knowledge And thank goodness today we have works as Jordan Marx or Santos Bonatti, right? Which is another author which I personally love, his work and him as a human being, right? His deconstruction and analysis um, towards the Holy See system is impeccable and in details and fully knowledgeable. So it's an incredibly beautiful work, which I absolutely recommend everyone to study. Okay, and an incredible dear figure also, a great Santos Bonatti. Um, so the crown copy name for the birth certificate is registered. Okay, and once the baby is named and certified within the terms of the law, it is submitted to the authority of the crown, formed by these secret societies and Masonic orders um, that compose the crown. And this implies submission to taxation, being passive towards a juridical process, or the word in English. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's process, right? In Portuguese is okay. Incriminations and legal tramites that relate to this name. Therefore, one is truly subjugated to the whole variety um, of events, okay, that one's life within the system can experience. Okay, so legal processes, I think it's sue, the word in English, right? Incriminations and 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 subjugation to the authorities of the law, right? These priests wearing black, which is of course the color of Saturn, okay? And as Jordan Maxwell explained very well, this whole thing is about making the flux of money continue. It's a ball game. Okay, so beside all the taxation that everyone is submitted, not to ask what they are doing with the taxes. Okay, so I leave this this question unanswered, and I truly recommend everyone, for those that do not know, research a specific life from Michael Tessarion called Fallen Angels and the Underground World. Aside his friend David Whitehead, an incredible interview, Fallen Angels and the Underground, and the lectures, the public lectures of Phil Schneider. Okay, so they will answer the question, what is being done with all this tax paying? And get ready, because it's an incredible, shocking reality. So please do the research, okay? And that uh, there happened that famous event where a public authority claimed that some few $1 trillion disappear from tax paying. So this is a very serious issue, and it's a big theme of the present world, okay? And as I said, unless one is empowered through knowledge, doing homework and learning from these great mentors, one cannot deconstruct and act within the system, okay? Um, as I said, Santos Bonatti offered great insights on how to respond to this situation, okay? As there is also the um, the subjective aspect of being subjugated to the system, because one will identify with the imperial power and its control and influence over one's humanity. So what one can do is trace the through etymological research the meaning of one's name. For example, the name uh, in Portuguese, uh, Juliana, right? Or Julia. This is a very good example because the prevailing meaning, which is Latin, means jovial from Julius, which is the same of Julius Caesar, right? Julius Caesar means jovial commander, okay? And one of the terms for Zeus, which is one of the variety of cults to the demiurge, is Jove, which means jovial. So there we have the Imperial Trinity, right? The Father, the demiurge, the Emperor crowned as Messiah, or Divi Filius in Latin. Okay. Yeah, no. Well, of course, there is a parallel with the Trinity, but what I mean is the demiurgic system. Okay, we're not gonna analyze the Trinity here. Okay, it's just to point out that through the study of the terms and etymology, we find these conclusions. Okay, so the term Juliana means jovial in the feminine through the prevailing sense, which is Latin, and this is the meaning that one will identify through the birth certificate. Okay, and this is valid for any other name. So if you're not aware of the meaning of your name, and you're not aware how the salvation and the crown copied name system works, one will identify with this imperial mentality, unless one realizes that there's a hidden ambiguity. Okay, so the other meaning of the name Juliana comes from the Gaelic Yule, right, which is a very famous tree, a druidical tree, the famous evergreen tree. So the ambiguity is there, and this is valid for any name. Uh, following these words, there is the implication in assuming the demiurge, this deity generated in a unbalanced creative act of Sophia, which is the central theme of the Gnostic library found in Nag Hammadi, that has proclaimed to be the only total and exclusive deity before nature, non-existing any other deity, becoming the tyrannical predator of the universe. So the way to respond to the system is, of course, learning from the great mentors that have done this incredible work, and there are many, right? Doing the homework in a deconstructive way. So it's about decoding the information, doing the study of symbology, etymology, and architecture, because the system is informing everyone what they are doing and the story of the imperial takeover in the earth. So, for example, the takeover of Judea in the Jewish revolt, which is also about the same problem when emperor, it could be Vespasian or Augustus, were forcing people to register their name. Okay, these cultures speaking Aramaic, and well, cultures that had nothing to do with Rome, and with yeah, the Canaanites also, that were being forced to submit to the crown, the Saturnian crown, um, and register their name in a crown copy name, like a birth certificate. So aside taxation, this was one of the reasons behind the Jewish revolt. And an important point to make is that the main symbol of the Saturnian crown is the hexagram of Saturn, called the Star of David. Okay, so David comes from the Egyptian Tut, the Hebraic Davud, and the Latin David, and it's not a historic individual. Okay, it's a military title applied to the field military commanders under the cult of the sun, known as Aton. So there were many Davids, many field commanders, and this military activity is directly linked to the secret societies that the modern ones reference their ancestors and their origins. It's all from Imperial Egypt, okay, since the cult of the Aton, including Pharaoh Akhenaten, of course, took over, way up to the times of Julius Caesar. Okay, so these are the ancestors of Roman Christianity, and 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 the main symbol for aside the hexagram of Saturn is the dove, in Latin columba, which is the same concept. Okay. Well, now we're gonna contrast this this analysis of the Holy See with the alchemical and Magian culture of the One, or Hermes Tehuti. So this culture is way earlier in existence to the power takeover by the empire, which happened more or less in the 14th dynasty, when the Hyksos invaded the Nile Delta, the Nile Valley, and imposed martial law from the Caucasians. And this event is encoded in the Bible when it says that Abraham, which is also an encoded term that means Father Aries and not a historical individual. Okay, so Abraham migrated from Ur, Chaldea, to Egypt. Okay, so this refers to the invasion of the Nile Valley by the Hyksos. And I will reference the great work of Ralph Ellis, which is an incredible alternative historian that has a lot to say about this subject. Okay, so please study Ralph's work as well. Okay. So the Tehuti or Hermetic culture developed in the relation between magi, architects, alchemists, and the magical deities in Kemet called the Neteru, in which the feminine principle was leading, known through the terms Ast, Sophia, or Maat. So within this alchemical culture, it's about a spiritual process of evolution where the authorities are defined by experience and wisdom, and expect from the disciples self-responsibility and service. Each person is considered to be a potential atom of the one being, right? And from the one being derives the logos or the om, okay, the sound, um, as a microcosmos towards a macrocosmos, micro towards a macrocosm. So this is the relation between an individual and the one being. Therefore, the experience of gnosis, which is the revelation of the divine spark and the one being, happens between the individuals and deity directly. Okay, more or less in the 14th dynasty, when the Hyksos invaded, archaeologists found in the city of Avaris, which is one of the cities of the Hyksos, they found Minoan art, okay, because the Minoans migrated from Crete to Avaris with the volcanic explosion in Crete. And this implies that the cult of Zeus, which is one of the terms for the cults of the demiurge, is been around for quite a while, right? Since the 14th dynasty. So this implies that the alchemical, Gnostic, and Magian culture is in conflict and in direct tension with this imperial demiurgic culture, at least from the 14th dynasty, when finally, in the times of Augustus and Julius Caesar, it had to go entirely clandestine. So this is very near the formation of inquisitions, of persecution of women accused to be witches, and all of this kind of stuff. Okay, so both cultures have been cohabiting in a very tense way, in a very yeah, in a conflict way for quite a while. So, according to the alchemical culture, the nature of this universe, as described by Walter Russell in his work, his fabulous work, The Secret of Light, this universe is a hologram where quantum physical electromagnetic waves move through space and time in the game of polarities. Okay, as the nature of sexuality is deeply present. So yeah, that's what Walter Russell says. It's a electric and sexual universe. Okay, and yeah, well, it's worth mentioning that the term El is Phoenician for the planet Saturn, and the term sex in Latin means six, pointing to the 6-point hexagram of Saturn. In other words, the sexual force is directly linked to the planet Saturn, and from this we can derive a conclusion that when the Hyksos invaded Kemet and brought the cult of Seth, right, this deity of the hot deserts of Egypt, this war-torn deity, okay, one of the phenomena that happened immediately when the cult of Seth joined the cult of the Aton, which, by the way, are the basic cults to the present Latin culture of monotheism, right? When one breaks down the symbols, one will realize that the Aton and Seth are everywhere. So the Aton is symbolized by a rising sun between two mountains, and Seth has to do with that red cross that they use in the medical system. Okay, and it's deeply related to the British Crown. So the cult of Seth is very active still. So when these two cults join, as the Hyksos and the Atonis join, which is the basis for the Judite and the Levite culture in Imperial Egypt, one of the demands made according to Freud, Moses, and monotheism, was the surrendering of the sexual force towards the religious and imperial authorities, which is none less than the antecessor of the whole sexual oppression and consequently the suffering that literally took over Roman Christianity, right? So this has its antecessors in Imperial Egypt. So back to the alchemical perspective and Walter Russell, the sexual nature is deeply present on this universe. And according to the Gnostics, human beings are invited from birth to experience their true nature, join with the one being uh, through the revelation of this divine spark. So the relation with sex is that for the Gnostics, the sexual force is nourishment for the monad. Okay, and the monad and the divine spark are basically the same consciousness. Okay, the same phenomena. Now, quoting the Gnostic text of Mary Magdalene within the Nag Hammadi library, Yeshua refers to the mantle called nous in Greek as keeping the treasure. So where is the nous, there is the treasure, is what it says. The divine spark in its splendid presence, as it says that in the alchemical principle of Tehuti, that the universe is mind. Therefore, this is an invitation for everyone to master the mental, right? Since where the mind is lies the treasure, all of us should be masters of our minds. Okay, and the term Nazarene comes from Nasir, from the Kemet Sira, which is the basic term for Sirius and Sir. So this is known, the connection between the Nazarenes and Kemet, even in the Talmud, as quoted by Ralph Ellis. The Nazarene king is referred as Bar Kamza, which is son of Kemet. Okay. So according to the Gnostics and the alchemists, spiritual evolution is based on self-responsibility. There is the rising of vibratory frequency as the attempt to become one, to meet equilibrium in the central point of the balance of Libra, called Ma'at. So in the central point of equilibrium, Ma'at used to weight the hearts in the balance and brought the lightness of a feather as a condition to be matched by the hearts, so these souls could move on to the fields of Amenti. Okay, so this is an example how the feminine principle through Libra and Ma'at was so influential and so present um, within the Gnostic and the alchemist culture. And in contrast to the demiurgic empire and its central cult to the sun, Aton, its complex of authorities, punitive tribunals, and the demand to submit the sexual force in obedience to this power pyramid, the alchemists and Gnostics had the deepest respect to sexuality as a fine and sacred energy. Because, as I said before, when worked, this energy could serve as nourishment to the monad and influence the revelation of the one being and the divine spark in each one. Okay. Now I will complete this live commenting that in the present modern day culture, when it comes to sexuality, well, there's an incredible war on consciousness that influence people to basically waste their energy, right? Mind control over women, men wasting their seed through all of this pornographical mind control and all of this. And the truth is that these secret orders that run the whole sexual business, they know why they're doing this, okay? And the reason is exactly to prevent the experience of gnosis. Because once the monad has no nourishment, cannot be fed, one will not experience the revelation, okay? Um well, and a modern parallel to the Gnostic and alchemist approach to sexuality comes from the Toltec culture, right? The right term is Tole, right? Through the work of Carlos Castaneda. So I suggest that uh, one takes a look what these Nagual shamans, as they are referred to, how they approach the sexual force, and one will see that it's very similar to the alchemical and the Gnostics. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this live. Please comment, like, subscribe to the channel, and as I've done in the start, I invite you to join the whole course, okay, until its completion. So thank you very much.